Hey everybody, Jamie Starr here for the New World News Network. On today's video, we are going to be exploring and getting into this quote from Ronald Reagan and just sort of unpacking some ideas. You know, it's interesting with Donald Trump taking office, the term fascism gets thrown around a lot. So we're going to really dive into fascism, how it's resurfaced, where it is, what it is, who's involved, and what's going on with all of it. So let's check out this little clip.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
So that's the little clip, you know, sort of infamously tossed around in sort of libertarian conservative circles and such. And I think this is a relevant topic to talk about as we are in New York now approaching our second phase of lockdowns. And at this point, you know, it's the 10 p.m. curfew for bars and restaurants. And, you know, you can't have more than 10 people in a private establishment. You know, this growing fascistic aspect of government is, I mean, it's in your face at this point. There's no denying it. So we're going to get into this article, which is just beautifully written, and you can see I just noticed this actually. This was published in 2014, so this is pre-Donald Trump. People have been seeing this for a while now, and you know, people who there is surface level issues, then there's layers beyond that, and layers beyond that, and layers and layers. So symbolically, fascism has been represented in the United States for a while now, and I will be getting into that. But I want to use this as a kickoff point because this very, very well covers both the surface level and a deep aspect to it. So many people identify modern liberalism as open-minded, tolerant political philosophy, and for good reason. They certainly don't think of themselves as fascist. Modern liberalism rails against social injustices and seeks to move the world into a better era. It stands for marriage equality, it is race and gender blind, and it believes people should not be unfairly barred from the resources they need to succeed. Most people agree with that. That is, you know, nutshell. I call it default liberalism. You could look at that as libertarianism. It is where the sort of center parties and libertarian, I mean, that is the foundational overlap that most Americans have in that definition right there. And from there, you can pick your, you know, oh, well, I'm for that. I see that in the Constitution. I'm for that, so I am for the Democrats. I'm for that. I mean, you can, that is so basic that you can go into any which branch from there. And that's when people get into, well, you know, we have the same ideas, we just have different means and mechanisms to try to achieve that. So, as it says, and for this, modern liberalism should be commended. But behind this ideology lies a secret, hidden intolerance of which most are unaware. It's not so much in what modern liberalism seeks to accomplish that is the problem, it's how it tries to make those changes. In fact, if people saw what this worldview meant, I think they would be appalled and abandon the system. Many Americans, myself once included, and myself, have accepted a worldview that at first seems the pinnacle of Western civilizations, but they don't see the hook at its heart. I want to propose that modern liberalism, through its aims are noble, actually produces the very opposite of its goal, and in that it's more similar to fascism than it is to liberty and freedom. How is modern liberalism anything like fascism? I'm glad you asked. Merriam-Webster defines fascism as such: a way of organizing a society in which a government ruled by a dictator controls the lives of the people, in which people are not allowed to disagree with the government. We might not have a single dictator, but the rest of this definition applies. Let me explain. Modern liberalism gets its name from liberalism. Today, we call those who follow the original tenets of liberalism libertarians. Classical liberalism stands upon the divine right of every person to certain inalienable rights, rights that no other human can violate. Many of the mainstream population believes libertarians are just more hardcore conservatives, but this could not be further from the truth. If you read my other posts on this topic, Why Modern Conservatism is Jihad in Disguise, you will see conservatism has its own serious problems. In order to understand how modern liberalism is similar to fascism, we need to understand liberalism, its parent ideology. God created every person. Because of this, he alone has authority over our lives. Thus, in relationship to each other, we are utterly equal. This is the reminder that we get every time a natural disaster, I said natural disaster comes along. You know, if a hurricane or a wildfire is sweeping through your area, doesn't matter if you're in a trailer or a mansion, that shit is getting knocked to the ground. God reigns supreme. So, since I did not create you, I have no authority over your life. That equality gives us certain rights in relationship to each other. 1. You have the right to your life. No other human has the right to end your life. You have the right to live your life how you see fit. No other human has the right to enslave or dictate your life. You have the right to the fruit of your life and labor. No other human has the right to steal from you. But not everyone accepts this equality. Some people believe they have the right to steal from you, rape you, or kill you. Therefore, for the sake of peace and tranquility, people give up some part of their equality to establish the government as an objective third party that enforces these rights: the police, the army, the justice system. Governments can only exist because we want to make it our inherent rights as individuals a reality. So this is, again, basic underlying philosophy that the government exists in a consensual relationship between the people. People acknowledge we are all free, but we also acknowledge some of us are good, some of us are bad, so we appoint this third party to help keep everyone in line so that no one is violating other people's rights. Very basic. I just condensed thousands of pages and centuries of philosophy into a few bullet points, so please excuse my gross oversimplifications. But here is an important takeaway. Without government, our inherent rights as individuals are not real. Anyone could come along and violate them. They could be thieves, thugs, or an invading army. In theory, we may have equal rights, but not in practice. We therefore empower the government to establish and protect those rights. This way we can truly be free. Even though we have to give up a little bit of our theoretical freedom to do this, we gain an immeasurable amount of practical freedom. And that is the sole reason for government to exist. If the government tries to do more than this, it must by nature violate the inherent rights of every individual. Modern liberalism is great, except for this one thing. And this is where modern liberalism partners with tyrants. To accomplish its high and lofty goals, modern liberalism must use the government as an instrument of social change, or as I refer to it, social engineering. Let's look at healthcare as an example. If people don't have access to healthcare, modern liberalism uses the government to make it so. But in order to do that, it must tax some people to pay for the healthcare of others. We are, in essence, forcing someone to pay for another person's medical bills. It is no different in principle than going door to door and holding people at gunpoint to make them pay for another person's doctor visits. We may like the idea of universal healthcare, but when we use the government to achieve it, we have violated the inherent rights of all people to do so. This is an argument I try to make to people when they also use the sort of, my aunt is on disability, and, you know, if it wasn't for the government, you know, this and that. And this is an argument you have with liberals, and we see this shown in studies where conservatives and people like myself who, you know, I would like to see private charities where there can be more transparency, more accountability, handle all of these things than the government, because the government inherently does it by force. There's no voluntary aspect of it. And when these people say, oh, well, my aunt, her disability, this and that, I tell these people, well, if you weren't taxed so much, if they weren't taking, you know, a quarter of your paycheck every week, would you give that money to your aunt to help her out? Would you personally? Because I think it would mean a lot more on an emotional level to say, hey, I know you're going through a rough patch, you know, here you go, I have this. But unfortunately, this probably wouldn't happen. This is me just being realistic about it. Most people budget their money according to how much they are making. So if they were making more money, they would spend more money. And in some ways, the fact that it's taken before they even get it ensures that it's going to those things. So they just sort of, you know, tell themselves, oh, well, it's going to help this person and that person, so let me not think anything about the fact that this government is, you know, continually making lists of what it needs to take my money for and taking it before I ever get it. I'm just going to tell myself they're doing good with it and not think anything of this theft aspect, and that if I don't give it for these government charities, that I'm going to get arrested. So anyway, we may like the idea of universal health care, but when we use the government to achieve it, we have violated the inherent rights of all people to do so. We have legislated theft. This is true for most of the political agenda of modern liberalism. To achieve its noble goals, it must become tyrannical in nature. It must decide that it has the right to people's money and their lives as long as it's for a good purpose. COVID lockdowns are a great example, and we see the how facetious it is, basically, with 10 p.m. curfew. Like, COVID is a werewolf or something, and it only comes out when the moon is up, and then it goes back into hiding at 5 a.m. Like, really? We're cool between 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., but then 2 hours to midnight, and then the middle of the night when no one's out anyway, like, we need to just lock shit down? I mean, it's so arbitrary that it's a power move. It is an exercise in power, no more, no less. In this type of government, there are no safeguards. The majority decides what rights the government can violate and to do what end. As long as people believe it is right, anything can become law. What happens when a new majority takes power? One that believes you have no rights whatsoever. What happens if they decide where you work, when you work, and what happens with your money? Again, COVID, great example. This may seem extreme, but this is the ideological foundation modern liberalism lays. It opens its door to this kind of state control. Surprisingly more intolerant than tolerant. And even though modern liberalism touts itself as the most tolerant worldview by its nature, it is the least. To illustrate my point, consider this. And I'm going to preface this by saying this also is applicable to economics, where I've tried to make this argument in terms of the socialism, capitalism argument. Under a capitalist system, people can set up communes, they can set up co-ops, they can set up these things, and it can work perfectly under a capitalist structure. Under a communist, socialist structure, you cannot have capitalism going on underneath it. I mean, I suppose in very small aspects you may, but there isn't really enough to go around to truly facilitate it and have it grow. So, whereas a libertarianism can tolerate the existence of modern liberalism cannot tolerate the existence of a libertarian community, whereas a libertarianism can tolerate the existence of a modern liberal community. Remember, libertarianism believes that every person has the right to live their lives how they see fit, and the only moral grounds for government is the protection of those rights. Anything beyond that would be a violation of people's divine rights as individuals. This also, you know, whether people acknowledge it or not, they also, you know, this gets into an atheist and theist argument, where I think even atheists really, really need to acknowledge that there is a reason that we put God at the center of our society. And whether you want to, believe in a Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, or whoever, or if you just want to say, okay, we are just using God as a placeholder for what is above us, Gaia, or whoever, but it's just basically to say that there's an authority above the meat suits. Atheists should really get on board with that and really soak that in and realize how important that is. In a libertarian world, if a group of modern liberals wants to build a community that socialized healthcare and education, they could, so long as they did not force people to be a part of their system. This is also very true of the liberals forcing people who are against abortion to pay for abortion, with funding Planned Parenthood and such. They could tax themselves heavily to build a robust and social medical system. They could equalize education by funding it through tax dollars. They could do all the things modern liberals want to do. And the greater libertarian community wouldn't care. We would say, good for you, I hope it works well, who knows, maybe I'll want to join that system. But a modern liberal community could not do the same. The modern liberal worldview requires that everyone pay into the system. It needs everyone to participate for it to even function. It doesn't just want everyone to participate, it needs it. If everyone isn't a part of the system can't work, at least in theory. This is because wealthier people must pay more into a system so that the needier people have equal access. If it was just an opt-in system, it wouldn't work because there would be more need than supply. That is the nature of the system. So modern liberalism can't have a group of people opt out. If some libertarian said, no thanks, I want to be responsible for my own healthcare, education, retirement, the liberal state couldn't allow it. Do you see how liberalism is secretly a very intolerant system? And similar to fascism, fascism forces people to obey the government and the people cannot disagree with it. In modern liberalism, people are forced to participate in the system even if you disagree, whereas real liberalism, libertarianism, has no such requirements. As long as you don't violate another person's life, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one there. We'll skip over to this. And then I have in my OneNote a bunch of other articles I pulled. So this is here making a very similar thing. It goes through the history here of Nazism, communism, liberalism, Nazism ceased to be a serious political force, this and that. Okay, so here's one of the first, and I'm just going to sort of go through these, and it's just showing parallels, basically. The obsession with race. So this is in its very... See, I'm going to just sort of put this out there in a broadly speaking. When you have groups of people and, they may act as if they have noble goals and means, oh, well, Black Lives Matter is, advocating for X, Y, and Z. So understandably, marginalized black people would gravitate towards something they think is advocating, for them. And, with this group and that group and the next group and, whatever communities. And even that, when you really get into all this stuff, you realize that the reason every group is called a community is because this is a communist push. Anyone that's actually runs in diverse circles, there is no black community. There is no gay community. Like, you might have a bunch of homos at a gay bar on a Friday, but there is no gay community. There is neighborhoods, there is a city, there is a state, but there is not communities. And it's almost like a mental ghettoization where they want you, and I know I've made this point before on this, on these videos over and over, but it's just been so burned into my heart where I was having a conversation with a kid that I went to school with from elementary school to high school, lived in New York, same city, performed in music shows together, hung out outside of school. Like, I mean, known this guy, grew up side by side, same friends. And after the shooting of Trayvon Martin, I explicitly asked him, who do you feel like you have more in common with, Trayvon Martin or me? And he said Trayvon. Now, Trayvon, 10 to 15 years younger than this guy, grew up in Florida. What are the commonalities? Oh, well, you can assume you guys listen to the same kind of music, but you and me also not only listen, but make that same kind of music together. Well, the only commonality, in fact, is skin color. So it shows the level of importance that is placed on things like race. So I'm not interested in engaging in this identity politics game and stuff like that. And people have even said this about, you know, Trump and his outreach to Black Americans and this and that. And it's like, why are you targeting these groups in this? Like, you're trying to play the game, and it's a game of raising racial consciousness. It is the game of putting importance into those things. And really, we should be trying to delegitimize and devalue the importance of race and gender and sexual preference. And I mean, not saying it needs to be eliminated. Yes, acknowledge it's an aspect of your person, obviously, you know, but it's on some level, I don't acknowledge myself as white. What is white? I'm Jamie. Full stop. I've always said that. I identify as myself. I don't identify by a bunch of categories that other people have created to try to put me into some target demographic for marketing and voting purposes. I mean, that is, when you adopt these labels, you're allowing yourself to be commodified by the system. So, I mean, that's just how it is. Like, let me put it like this even. By acknowledging that I am a biological man, I am allowing myself to be categorized by a biological system created by men. Now, created by observation and science, and yeah, sure. But I'm still allowing myself to be put into that box by identifying by their terms, their categories. To me, it all boils down to that sort of divine nature of everything, where it's like, no, I am a divine being made in the image of God. You want all your categories and labels or whatever, I know that there's a soul inside of me, and you can't put that into a box. And you can go from there with things. And let's get this lost in the weeds shit that keeps people bickering, and obsessions with race. Where does obsessions with race start? Well, with raising racial consciousness. And where does it go? Well, we've seen, as they're saying, Nazi Germany and all sorts of horribleness. Ideological unity between the media and political parties. This we've seen, you see it right now with the media declaring Joe Biden as the president. You know, for months the media was saying, red mirage on election night, it will appear that Trump is winning. And, you know, and here's the crazy part about it. So the polls were wrong, but their generalized prediction was spot on. I mean, that's how they rigged the game, and they were just trying to preface you for how things played out. COVID-19 and it's a dark winter or this and that. I mean, they're constantly, and it's so it doesn't seem shocking. So you don't seem like. It's the whole reason it was, 2 weeks to slow the spread. Oh, well, now we need to flatten the curve. Oh, well, now we need to do this and that. And it gets more and more arbitrary. But as long as you're the frog in the pot of boiling water and they just ease it in, most people will adapt to it. you know, here we see it going on. They mention Antifa as goons. You know, Joe Biden says Antifa is just an idea and dismisses it like that. Well, Nazism was just an idea. And you know, we just see this more and more. You know, Twitter can also go into this. Twitter is combined with political parties now. It's obvious there's a bias there. Ideological unity between academia and political parties. We see that more and more. You know, the schools are basically academic activist training camps at this point. Now, one other part that I will point to is you also now have a merger of the military and media, where we very much have a military media industrial complex. And you know, I know there's that sort of QAnon-esque video, Fall of the Cabal, that a lot of people saw during the first sort of round of lockdowns. And, you know, some of that you can pick apart and, you know, what's legit, what isn't, you know, but there is a lot of truth in it. Very similar to, like, the first Zeitgeist movie that came out, you know, the first whole part of it about, you know, Jesus being a retelling of all these ancient, you know, Mesopotamian and Egyptian stories, bullshit. The movie creator has been called on it, and he said, oh, well, you know, it's a fast and loose reading. Like, you know, the idea that the Virgin Mary's conception of Jesus is similar to, like, Osiris's cut off penis story. Like, it just doesn't add up. Like, actual historians have delved into that and torn it to shreds. But the second and third part of that first movie are true about 9/11 and the government corruption and the military and all that stuff. And that's generally how you have to get people to buy into lies, is by cloaking it in the truth. Anyway, the point I'm getting at here is in the Fall of the Cabal, it goes through and it shows people in media and their relationships to government. George Stephanopoulos, you know, he was a communications director for the Clintons. He's now on one of these channels. Anderson Cooper interned at the CIA. A lot of your media pundits have either worked for political parties, been a part of the intelligence community, and so on. But now, you also then have intelligence officials that are getting paid commentary positions, like Brennan and Clapper and Comey will be commentators on CNN. So you have like a CIA agent interviewing a former head of the FBI, and it is just military industrial complex news coming left and right. And that's the thing, is people are hearing these things and not knowing who they're coming from and what their objectives are. You know, the simple thing is the talking point: 17 military intelligence, whatever communities, you know, Russian interference in the election. What are the 17 intelligence agencies? The Department of Tobacco and Firearms? Like the EPA? Like, what are these federal agencies? So we also see the military and the media combining. The will and power to crush dissent, obviously. Cancel culture, I don't really have to say much more. It is obvious if you are not on one particular side of the aisle. Here's a very simple one: saying all lives matter. Saying I'm not for Black Lives Matter, I'm for all lives matter. What, but we've seen like Terry Crews get raked through the coals over this. Handful of other people. Kevin Hart can make a gay joke 10 years ago, and then 10 years later he can't host the Oscars because, you know, his politics weren't, you know, because he made a joke. Totalitarian society. And here you see George Orwell's 1984 thought crime. Now, I know people are going to not like hearing this, but this is what I consider racism. Oh, and it says liberalism branded word. Well, actually, let's read this. In George Orwell's 1984, thought crime describes a person's politically unorthodox thoughts, such as unspoken beliefs and doubts that contradict the dominant political ideology. We see a similar pattern playing out in the liberal world. Merely accusations and allegations combined with certain suspicious behavior is enough reason to completely destroy an individual's life. For instance, a person does not have to be a homophobe or a misogynist in order to have his life completely destroyed or ruined. Mere accusations are enough. Furthermore, anyone who does not endorse the most extreme positions of the liberal world is branded homophobe, misogynist, regressive, or whatever the latest buzzword may be, and then it is demanded that their professional career be destroyed. Mere differences in political opinions are treated as thought crimes, and efforts are undertaken to crush the individual. Everyone who disagrees with the liberal is sanguine and fascist against whomever. Even violence is justified. I don't even know what those terms are. Okay, so, and then here we have a thing, just, you know, a good book to check out on this is Jonah Goldberg's Liberal Fascism. Gets into a lot of this stuff. And a movie, like, and it's funny how people reference 1984 and Brave New World, and I don't remember how I think I do. I think I was just like searching like the most censored and banned movies, and you know, just the things that are like what was it, like Caligula, you know, where it's just this movie of like Caligula is what, Rome, Greece, one of the two. It's escaping me right now. I think it was Rome. But, you know, it's like a movie about the fall of Rome, and there's just scenes of, like, orgies going on and all of this decadence and, you know, cultural decay. So I was looking up, what are some other movies like Caligula? And I came across this, Salo. The film is a loose adaptation of 1785 book, The 120 Days of Sodom, by the Marquis de Sade, set during World War II, and was Pasolini's final film, being released 3 weeks after his murder. Very similar to like a Kubrick Eyes Wide Shut thing. I just on a surface level of seeing that, but could be wrong. The film focuses on 4 wealthy, corrupt Italian libertines in the time of the fascist Republic of Salo. And I mean, what you have going on here, let's read actually this bit, because this goes into a little more. In World War II, Italy, 4 fascist libertines round up 9 adolescent boys and girls and subject them to 120 days of physical, mental, and sexual torture. Nazi fascist Northern Italy, 1943 to 44, 4 senior members of government, aided by henchmen and Nazi soldiers, kidnap a group of young men and women. They hold them for 120 days, subjecting them to all manners of torture, perversion, and degradation. And it is. I mean, it is. This is a movie you will fast forward through, where there are these just, I mean, weird scenes, but it, I mean, it's like you don't even want to say it, really. Where there's just, but it's illustrates this point so well that societies can fall into, where you're seeing them, you know, in these large banquet halls with, you know, servants bringing in food and, you know, these feasts, and these kids are like just sort of kept for entertainment and, you know, sexual gratification, and then at some point that's not enough. So then they're like, oh, well, you know, you little slave children, you know, nothing should go to waste. So, you know, we're going to have you save your excrement and we're going to serve it to you with dinner. And then you see the libertines and the people who have captured them also then engaging in this behavior. I mean, where they are literally shitting in buckets and then bringing it back out on silver platters to them to eat. And then at the end of it, they're just letting them run, and you see it sort of go slowly, where at first, okay, we just have these servants. Well, now we've decided that the servants can't wear clothes because we need to be able to rape them whenever we want. And, you know, But you see this satanic, I mean, that's the only way to describe it. It is a movie that really shows a satanic spirit taking hold of people, where and the fact that when you try to enact that evil upon people, that you then become engrossed in that evil yourself, you know. And it's why when Paul was, you know, talking to me about the whole thing about what's his name, Biden's kid, Hunter Biden, and the videos and the all of this other stuff, and him keeping it, and a sort of essentially compiling like your own blackmail dossier. And why would someone do that? And it's very hard, because when I said I'm not the person to ask, would you do? I don't take selfies in the first place. So the idea that I would be taking selfies of me with a crack pipe and an underage prostitute and all this other stuff, eventually, if this is the behavior you're engaging in, I mean, it's basically a matter of cranking up the dopamine. Like, what can you do to push the bounds and all this stuff? And like I always say, when you hear these stories, like I think I heard a story once of like a British queen that was sleeping with animals, like her horse, or there's the scandal of the British Prime Minister and the pig, and it is just about pushing the bounds. It's that satanic spirit. So, hard movie to watch, very interesting and insightful into all of this, the function of this sort of power and control and having that power over people. I mean, it makes like sitting through Roots a comfortable watch, basically. And here's the thing, is like, it's not as gory as like some of your slasher films, but it's done in this manner that, oh my god, there's one scene where one of the kids is misbehaving, and they take a ball of like dough and put razor blades in it and make the kid like eat it until their mouth is bleeding. I mean, just like I said, I have not sat through and watched it all. I have skimmed through it, and just as a sort of reminder, like, sometimes you need to look at the darkness and realize how dark people can be, and then, you know, but not ever get too deep into it. So I don't hear people talking about this movie. I've never heard anyone mention it on a podcast or anything like that. So, you know, there it is for you to look into. To try stomaching it. So let's just go through these real quick. So here I pulled up the article on fascism. I think we basically understand this. I mean, I've always looked at fascism as a merger of the state and the private. I guess it's what Reagan said, where the state has ultimate control over everything. Now here's the thing, the interesting thing. This right here, as we can see here, actually, let me just pull this up to show. See that? That's the symbol of fascism. And what it is it's a axe head with a tied bundle of sticks. And the tied bundle of sticks is supposed to represent the people. And that the people, tightly bound together, tightly constricted, are stronger together. And, you know, because it's basically the principle of, well, if you swing the axe and there's just the one twig, the twig will break, so you need to strengthen it, and you strengthen it by bundling them all together. So, I mean, very militaristic way of thinking. Well, what are those behind Mr. Barack Obama? Well, that's the symbol of fascism. So why is the symbol of fascism just hanging up in the Congress? Anyone want to take a shot at that? I mean, this is like when people, Donald Trump, fascism in America. Where have you been? I mean, there it is. It's right in your face. This is not coming. This is here. Here it is. So all of this, oh, well, liberalism, they act like the fascists. They're fucking hanging fasci right in front of you. So, not up for debate. Not up for debate. This would be like if that American flag was taken down and there was just a swastika right there behind Barack Obama, and people were like, do you think maybe we're acting a little Nazi-like? And it's like, oh, what gave it away? The swastika hanging behind the president? Like, I mean, that's the level we're at. And maybe I should have started this video with that point. And I think I've done other videos pointing to this. But you can't stress this enough. Those are fasci. Hung in the Congress. Why are they hung in the Congress? Are we fascist? I would appear so. I wish I had something insightful to say besides, there it is. There you go. So, from there, anything's possible. So, Netflix is now a propaganda machine for the Obamas. Now, this is very similar to how I was saying, and I mean, Obama was completely a Hollywood creation. Michelle being a woman is a Hollywood creation, according to Joan Rivers. But this is the thing I was saying, where you have the media, on the one hand, the news media. Well, now you have the entertainment media. Obama's, I mean, Netflix, I'm already 40 minutes in, so I'm going to just, briefly fly over these, because I think I've established the similarities enough that by just pointing to these things, it should be like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. Obama is now on the Netflix board, and it's not just him and Michelle, it is other people. Obama's Netflix board members Susan Wright silent amid Cutie's firestorm. So other people in his cabinet are now on the Netflix board. Big tech employees overwhelmingly donate to 2020 Democrats. So again, here you have the big tech merger with the political party. Employees at Silicon Valley's big 5 tech companies, Amazon, Alphabet, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft, have given $15 million to the Democrat candidates this year, drawing from the data available on the Center for Responsive Politics Open Secrets website. That number compares to $3 million these employees contributed to Republicans. Most liberal tech companies ranked by employee donations. So, here's another one. Netflix, NVIDIA, Adobe. I mean, stark contrast here. IBM, $1.5 million compared to $163,000. Salesforce, Alphabet. I mean, look at this difference. $5.5 million to $766,000. 4 million basically to 700,000. These Silicon Valley donators are spending the most to beat Donald Trump. Okay, so almost 95% of Silicon Valley donations have gone to Joe Biden. Joe Biden has raised 11 million from Connecticut donors compared to 4 million for Donald Trump. And a lot of this also just ties into me pointing out that Wall Street donors favor Democrat candidates. The military favors them. So it's again this sort of merger of media, corporate, military, intelligence communities, academia, and it all conglomerating together into and parts of the Republican Party too. Realistically, before Donald Trump, it was a uniparty that was just like two people playing ping pong, just knocking the ball back and forth. Like, trust me, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, they're all buddy-buddy. It's why Jesse Ventura, when he got into politics, said it's a lot like pro wrestling, because when the cameras are on, they're all at each other's throats. And then behind closed doors, they're, friends and at each other's kids' birthday parties. What was it? Oh, fuck, I can't, his name just escaped me. Lindsey Graham gave what? A hug to Klobuchar, and people were up in arms. Ellen DeGeneres sits next to George Bush at a baseball game and people are up in arms. That's because people buy into the World Wrestling Entertainment aspect to this. And it's amazing. It really is amazing. And there's something ironic to it when people are looking at Donald Trump and they're like, reality show, entertainment president. And, you know, that like they only know of his Hollywood aspect and not everything that got him from a real estate developer into Hollywood and entertainment. And yet they fail to see the whole thing as an entertainment charade. I mean, look at AOC. You have people all the time that are like, this chick is more concerned with tweeting and bullying online and, you know, saying we need lists of Trump supporters for, you know, councils on truth and reconciliation and whatever than she is for her actual local district. It's like the Hollywood actor that's like on the small stage that wants to go to Broadway so that they can get into Broadway to get on the sitcom, to get onto the sitcom, to get into the Hollywood blockbuster. It's all just, but it's performative. Wall Street donors line up behind Biden in massive third quarter fundraising haul. Scranton Joe gleefully collects $74 million from Wall Street. And then here you have in the Black Lives Matter aspect, here's the full list. Here are the 269 companies that are supporting BLM and Antifa riots. So let's just scroll through the list. 23andMe, Abbey Road Studio, the Academy, the Oscars, Blizzard, Activision. So, I mean, we're already seeing right here, Abbey Road's recording studio, like the Beatles, where they were doing their music out of. 23andMe, a DNA database. Blizzard, Activision, a video game company. Adidas, a shoemaking company. Airbnb, Amazon, AMD, which is a technology company, American Airlines, American Express, a banking company, American Apparel, Apple Music, Ancestry, Armani, Astro Gaming, AT&T, Atlantic Records, AXE, that's what, Armani Exchange or something like that, Barclays Bank, Barnes & Nobles, Bandcamp. I mean, Bandcamp, I can't even be an independent musician and publish my music on their website without some part of some revenue going to this fascist state and these, you know, oh God, these ancillary sort of militaristic offshoots that are rioting and looting. Bayer, Bethesda, Ben & Jerry's, Billboard, BMW, Burger King, Bratz, kids dolls. Well, you know, buy your kids a fucking kids doll and support fascism. Burberry, Burt's Bees, Cadillac, Call of Duty, Capcom, Capitol Records, Cartoon Network, Chick-fil-A even, you know, they're the group that gets heat all the time for, you know, being closed on a Sunday because they believe that's the day of rest and they're religious. Even they're supporting the ancillary fascist, you know, jackboot wing of this fascist party. Chipotle, Cisco, Citigroup, Coca-Cola. I mean, do I have to keep Crunchyroll as streaming anime service? I mean, nothing is off bounds. Do I have to, like, this is exactly what Reagan was talking about. You see the vast swaths of industry that are funneling money into this. Nothing exists outside of the political. That's the main point to take away. You know, people would always say the thing about the personal becoming the political. The political has now consumed everything. You can't operate in this market because the thing they were doing is basically if a company went against it, they would start saying, well, you're racist, you're sexist, you're whatever. I mean, look at the way businesses get targeted. If they, I mean, this is small mom and pop business. This isn't giant corporations, but look at the way a baker didn't want to bake a gay wedding cake, or a pizza place didn't want to cater a wedding, or, you know, whatever. Look at the way they're targeted by the national news media and everything like that. DoorDash, Dropbox, E-News, EA, ESPN, FedEx, Fender, Fitbit, Foot Locker, Fox. So even Fox is supporting Black Lives Matter and Antifa. That shows you the Uniparty. Funimation, GameSpot, General Motors, Gibson, can't buy a guitar without money going to Antifa. GoFundMe, Google, GoPro, Gorilla Glue, Grindr, not surprised, Gumroad, Gushers. Hey, I mean, this is my first time going through this. I save these things and I generally don't really look at them. This is unsettling because even as an independent musician, I am seeing every website that I distribute music on is giving money to these organizations, and as I'm going through this, I'm having a hard time thinking of what is outside of this. Where can I sell my music where part of it will not be funding these organizations that I object to? HBO Max, Hershey's, H&M, Home Depot, Honda, HP, Hulu, Humble Bundle, IBM, IKEA, IMAX, Indiegogo, Intel, Kickstarter, Lego, Levi's, Livono, Lexus, LinkedIn, Logitech, Lowe's, Lucky Brand, Lyft, Louis Vuitton, Madden NFL 20, Marvel Entertainment, MasterCard, Mattel, McAfee, McDonald's, Merrick, MetLife, Microsoft, Mozilla, NASCAR, Netflix, New Balance, NFL, NHL, Nickelodeon, Nike, Nintendo, Nordstrom, Old Spice, OnlyFans, Paramount Pictures, Paramount Network, Patreon, Pepsi, Pfizer, PlayStation, Pokemon, Popeyes, Pornhub, Porsche, Pringles. I mean, everything from body wash to hookup sites and porn is funneling money into this shit. Puma, Red Hat, Red Lobster, Red Wing, Reese's, Rice Krispies, Rockstar Games, Scholastic, Sega, Sesame Street, Showtime, Sephora, Shopify, Snapchat, Sony, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stars, Starbucks, Star Wars, Subway, Cisco, Taco Bell, Target, TBS, Ticketmaster, TikTok, Tinder, Tumblr, Twitch, Twitter, Uber Eats, Ubisoft, Ultra Beautiful, Underarm, Vanguard, Vans, VeggieTales, Verizon, Versace, Vivo, Via, Viacom, Virgin, Warner Brothers, Warner Records, Wells Fargo's, Wendy's, Xbox, Yamaha, YouTube, Zyjan, Zoom. There you go. These 14 corporations, I'm sure they were included in the other one. All right, so let's get into this real quick. And this is just to take it even a step further from the idea of fascism just straight into Nazism. So the 25 points of Hitler's Nazi Party. We demand the union of all Germans in a great Germany on the basis of principle of self-determination above all peoples. Yeah, that sounds cute. We demand that German people have the rights equal to those of other nations, and that the peace treaties of Versailles and Saint-Germain shall be abrogated. We demand land and territory, colonies, for the maintenance of our people and settle for our surplus population. Only those who are fellow countrymen can become citizens. Only those who have German blood, regardless of creed, can be our countrymen. Hence, no Jew can be our countryman. So obviously there you get into their racial component. And, I mean, this is Germany enacting affirmative action for Germans, basically. Those who are not citizens must live in Germany as foreigners and must be subject to the laws of aliens. So basically they're saying, here's one set of laws, here's a set of laws for another. Very much what we have with our illegal immigration system. I've done previous videos on this. Illegal immigration is modern day slavery. We are having a subclass of people who are not entitled to rights, who are acting as a secondary labor force without all the benefits and so on and so forth, living in substandard conditions, and people are rationalizing it as saying, well, who else will do these jobs? The right to choose the government and determine the laws of states shall apply only to citizens. Therefore, we demand that no public office of whatever nature, whether in the central government, be held by anyone who's not a citizen. That makes sense. I mean, obviously there are some sensible things in here because it's basically just how to run a government for the people, by the people, of the people. So let's get into, we demand that the state shall undertake to ensure that every citizen shall have the possibility of living decently and earning a livelihood. If it should not be possible to feed the whole population, then aliens, not citizens, must be expelled from the Reich. So there's a socialism aspect right there, where it basically says the government has to provide for all of its people, and if it can't provide for all of its people, then we need to get rid of the people that aren't the people of the group. So there's more on immigration. The first duty of every citizen must be to work mentally or physically. No individual shall do any work that offends against the interests of the community to the benefit of all. So, and that this is a sort of a very cancel culture-esque idea of, you know, if we've decided that gay marriage is all right and a baker doesn't want to bake a cake, well, that's offending the community to the benefit of all. Don't rock the boat. If we've decided this, you must go along with this. Very much, you know, remember The Sound of Music. Family in Austria didn't want to fall under Hitler's rule, so they ended up having to run and escape. That all unearned income and all income that does not arise from work must be abolished. So that was the idea of usury, getting paid to loan out money at higher rates and such. Since every war imposes on the people fearful sacrifices in blood and treasure, all personal profit arising from the war must be regarded as treason to the people. Therefore, we demand the total confiscation of all war profits. Maybe there's something to that. You know, when you have an out-of-control military-industrial complex and all these military contractors and all that getting extremely rich off of data and weapon sales and all this stuff, maybe we should confiscate all of their profits because they've been profiting off the blood of Americans. So here's where we get into more of the democratic-esque ideas. We demand the nationalization of all trusts. We demand profit sharing in large industries. We demand a generous increase in old age pensions. We demand the creation of maintenance of a sound middle class, the immediate communalization of large stores which shall be rented cheaply to small tradespeople, and the strongest consideration must be given to ensure that small traders shall deliver the supplies needed by the state, the provinces, and the municipalities. We demand an agrarian reform in accordance with our national requirements and to enact of a law to expropriate the ownership without compensation of any land needed for the common people, the abolition of ground rents, and all prohibition of the speculation in land. This was basically their Green New Deal, where, you know, we need to take over all of the land, redo it so that it can, you know, meet our utopian ideas, whether it's for climate. I mean, nowadays it'd be like, we need to take over all the farms because a cow could fart. Like, I mean, this is in that same spirit. We demand that ruthless war be waged against those who work to the injury of the common welfare. Traitors, usurers, profiteers are to be punished with death, regardless of creed or race. We demand that Roman law, which serves as a materialist ordering of the world, be replaced by German common law. Obviously, Roman law, they're talking about the Vatican. Vatican's a whole deep rabbit hole you can go down. In order to make it possible for every capable industrialist German to obtain higher education and thus the opportunity to reach into positions of leadership, the state must assume the responsibility of organizing thoroughly the entire cultural system of the people. The curricula of all education establishments shall be adapted to practical life. The conception of the state idea, science of citizenship, must be taught in the schools from the very beginning. We demand that the especially talented children of poor parents, whatever their station or occupation, be educated at the expense of the state. But that's free college, basically. Get rid of school debt, free college. Kindergarten is a German soldier building, or a Prussian Empire soldier building program. Again, we have the aspects of this already in place. They've been with us for almost a century now. But this is school for all, higher education, again, all these very Democrat platform policies. The state has the duty to raise the standard of national health by providing maternity welfare centers, by prohibiting juvenile labor, by increasing physical fitness through the introduction of compulsory games and gymnastics, and by the greatest possible encouragement of associations concerned with the physical education of the young. Healthcare. Government involved in your healthcare, your diet. This is like, how they talk about Chinese gymnasts that have been trained since they were 2 years old to do backflips for the Olympics. Let's see. We demand that there be a legal campaign against those who propagate deliberate political lies and disseminate them through the press in order to make possible the creation of German press. We demand all editors of the newspaper, so on. So, fake news. Basically, this is them saying, we're deciding what the news is, and anything outside of the news is fake news. Let's see. So, there's enough of that. It's the same thing. Do fascists support universal health care? There's people just talking about that. I think if fascists would agree on universal health care, obviously within their nation, it is an accepted belief among nationalist circles that loyalty to one's nation or country is structured by the overall welfare of the masses, which is provided by healthcare, education, social security. And here they say the state is to care for elevating national health. That's that idea right there. Fascists and gun control. So here's the whole thing going through here about how, in all these fascist areas and totalitarian societies, state always takes the guns. Gun control in Italy, right before fascism, regulated all the firearms, so on and so forth. And this is here's the thing where FDR praised Mussolini and loved fascism. This is a revisionist history thing where there isn't a dictator or a despot anywhere in the world that the political left has not praised. Period. I mean, end of story. This whole idea of, America's racist and the Republicans are racist and this and that, this comes from the political left, a party that has praised every dictator, fascist, strongman, Nazi ever, consistently, non-stop. Che Guevara, Maduro, Stalin, Mussolini. Hitler was Time Magazine's Person of the Year twice. I mean, they praise these people. Mao! They were praising Mao. They praise these people over. There is not a fascist dictator that the left doesn't love. It's just over and over and over and over while they're saying, you're a fascist, oh, Mussolini, the New Deal is just Mussolini's dream. Mussolini said FDR, look at his New Deal, FDR's a fascist, Nazi, fascist, and then they're writing love letters to each other. Margaret Sanger of Planned Parenthood and Hitler are like, eugenics, yeah, kill the blacks, keep the Aryans, let's get rid of the Jews, the Slavs, blah, blah, blah. They're all in love. They're all in love, and they're all going to call you what they are, and that's as simple as it gets. So, as you can tell, I've been going on with this for just way too long. I'm ready to stop sitting in the same place. Ticketmaster will require COVID test, vaccine status to attend concerts. This was the headline yesterday, and this is the medical fascist. And I forgot another article. Australia had a 3,000 person housing complex swarmed in police for medical lockdowns. This is another layer of this sort of just interconnected, just layering of it, where it's like Ticketmaster, which is a ticket sales company that's tied into the entertainment industry because they're, obviously booking things for these concerts, which is now tying itself into the medical company, which is tying itself into big pharma, which has tied itself into the politics, which is backed up by the people with guns, being the military and the police. And now they're all saying, well, in order to come to our concerts, in order to do business with us, you have to do business with the medical companies. And here's the other part. Most of these people, because, I keep looking at all of this stuff, and they keep saying, well, your phone will have your vaccine records, your phone will have your digital passport, your phone will have this, I don't have a phone. I have no interest in getting a phone. I was without one for 5 years. I had one for 2 years. I hated it. I never plan on having a cell phone again. It's just not for me. Well, it's looking like I'm not going to be able to go to a Ticketmaster concert. So now this came out, and everyone was like, whoa, Ticketmaster is requiring mandatory vaccines. So here's their damage control this morning. No, Ticketmaster won't force you to have a COVID vaccine. So then they say, absolutely no requirement for mandated vaccines. We're not forcing you to do anything. So here's how it would work. After purchasing a ticket, fans would need to verify. And now let's keep in the back of your mind, COVID, 99.6% recovery rate. I mean, it kills a fraction of people. I mean, this is basically like saying, we're doing this in case someone has the sniffles or a peanut allergy. This is very much in line with the peanut allergy thing, where it's like some kid might have a peanut allergy, therefore no one can use peanut butter in a school. I mean, that goes on. My niece had to buy like pecan butter or almond butter or, walnut butter or something because the peanut allergy. Oh God, if some kid has one, God forbid there be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich around. Like, the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are a threat to your life. This is that mentality gone into the broader world. After purchasing a ticket, fans would need to verify that they have been vaccinated, offering 1 year of protection, or had a test negative for coronavirus 24 to 72 hours before a concert or sporting event. Test results would be delivered to a health pass company, such as Clear or IBM, at fans' requests, who would pass the information to Ticketmaster. If they are negative or vaccinated, Ticketmaster would issue digital ticket via their app. So do you already see how many layers of business you're having to conduct here, when it used to just be, you show up, you buy a ticket, you walk in and see the show. That's how simple it used to be. If a fan tested positive or did not verify vaccination, they would not be allowed to access the event. Ticketmaster would never have access to medical records and would only receive verification of whether a fan is cleared to attend an event on a given date. I mean, you can infer the medical information from there. But like I said, do you see the level of, okay, well, Ticketmaster is booking this group and this and that, and you need to get a health pass company, which I don't know what Clear is, but IBM is a technology company. So in order to have entertainment, live entertainment, you need to have a cell phone first off, because it said the tickets would be issued digitally via their app. You need to have a coronavirus test or vaccine, so now you're involved with the medical industrial complex. Then you need to get that information from the medical company to a health pass company, which is a technological medical company at this point, and then into the app, which is the phone, the telecoms, and everything. So now, as something as simple as going to a concert, you're now doing business with like 5 different industries just to go to a concert. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to go to a concert. Among them were 90s pop group Right Said Fred, who wrote on Twitter, "Here it is, vaccines will be mandatory in all but name." And that's very true. Where basically, you know, the whole thing, if someone is a concert goer, like, I wonder how this is going to apply to bands and performers, especially because you're up on stage, you're not surrounded by, but if I was a performer and I wanted to perform live and be in a different club every night and this and that, the easiest thing would just be to get a vaccine. And it says here, verify that they've been vaccinated, offering 1 year of protection. So you're supposed to get this every year. I mean, that's insane. That is insane. This is basically like the flu shot. And I wouldn't be surprised if that comes next. They'll do this with something new, and then they'll turn around and say, you need a flu shot every year in order to go into these places. And it's going to start with Ticketmaster, and then it's going to go to restaurants, and then it's going to go to the stores, and then it will be, as people, again, this is a dark rabbit hole, I'm trying not to get into conspiracy land, the chip and the technology, I mean, there's 666 in all of the patent numbers for this. It is, again, one of these things where it's sort of in your face, and yet if you point out to it being so in your face, they call you crazy. And you're supposed to feel crazy for acknowledging it, because you're like, it's right here in front of us, it's the elephant in the room. Why does no one else see this? So, anyway, gone on for long enough. This is my video on how fascism is gone. It's gone into Operation Warp Speed for fascism here, but it's been here for a while, and it's about time people start waking up and seeing it. So if you like the channel, subscribe, share the video. Hope everyone stays happy, healthy, and safe. And just always keep in mind, we don't need these people. These people, their purpose is to gaslight us. Their purpose is to make us feel crazy. Their purpose is to create chaos. And when you feel hopeless and surrounded by chaos, they want you to give up and turn to them for leadership and examples. And I really just hope what people do is they just turn away from it and they say, you know what? And on some levels it sounds selfish. You know, here's the thing. When George Floyd died, the point I would make to everyone is, okay, an awful thing happened to somebody in Minneapolis, Minnesota, wherever. An awful thing happened to one guy. I feel bad for him. Not my business, though. Not my business. And so many of these issues, I mean, really, just learn to draw that line between what the powers that be are trying to tell you and the information and the environment they are trying to socially engineer us into, and believing that black people and white people don't get along, and believing that the cops are just shooting down and killing people, and believing that everyone's against you and that, you know, you don't have access to things you're owed and this and that. And then just really look around you at the people in your life. Who can you trust? Who's there for you? Who's a positive influence? Who's feeding into the negativity and the gloom and doom and doesn't believe that anything's worth doing? And really just get back to basics, back to where you're standing, back to what you can see, touch, taste, and what's around you, and don't worry about the rest of it. And realize how, I mean, delegitimizing these people and their influence and their voices, the same way I said we should delegitimize racial awareness. That's the best route to go. Delegitimize all of it, tear it all down, because I mean, everyone at basic necessity level and what they're surrounded by will make do. We've done it before. A lot of these are first world problems, and a lot of these problems can only arise out of first world problems. So you really got to realize that. Be grateful for what you have. Anyway, that's all. Take care, everyone.